I've been a detective in Detroit for over 14 years, navigating the city's shadowed corners and confronting horrors that linger long after the cases are closed. Some scenes etch themselves into your mind, images that make you double-check your locks, question the intentions behind a stranger's glance, or hesitate before stepping into the dark. But nothing has haunted me like the house on Palmer Street. It began as a routine missing person case, but it unraveled into something far darker, something I still can't fully explain. It was late autumn when Dominic Carter, a 23-year-old line cook at a downtown diner, vanished. He'd clocked out at 11 p.m., his shift ending like any other. His mother, Ellen, came to the precinct 2 weeks later, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched a frayed scarf. She sat across from me in my cluttered office, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dominic wouldn't just leave," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He's a good boy. He always calls." Parents often say their kids wouldn't disappear without a word, but there was a raw certainty in her tone, a mother's intuition that something terrible had happened. The last trace of Dominic was a bus stop a few blocks from the diner. No cameras caught his movements, no witnesses saw him leave. His phone's final ping placed him in an abandoned neighborhood on Detroit's east side, a wasteland of crumbling homes and forgotten streets. In a city where people go missing too often, hope fades fast, but something about Dominic's case gnawed at me. Maybe it was Ellen's quiet desperation or the way the trail went cold so abruptly. I couldn't let it go. 3 weeks into the investigation, a tip came in. A woman, gaunt and jittery, stumbled into a homeless shelter, her clothes tattered, her eyes wild with fear. She told a volunteer she'd seen something in one of the abandoned houses on Palmer Street. A man, she said, trapped inside, unable to leave. When pressed for details, she clammed up, shaking her head and muttering, "I don't go near that place anymore. Nobody should." Her words carried a weight that sent a chill down my spine. I grabbed my partner, Detective Tom Reeves, and we headed out. It was a frigid January morning, the sky heavy with slate-gray clouds that seemed to press down on the city. The neighborhood was a ghost town, rows of decaying houses stretching out like tombstones. Shattered windows gaped like empty eye sockets, and doors hung off their hinges, swaying in the wind. The house at the end of Palmer Street was worse than the rest. A sagging 2-story structure with a collapsed porch, its walls defaced with graffiti. Scrawled in red paint were the words, "Leave" and "Hell is here." The letters uneven, as if written in a hurry. Reeves snorted, his breath fogging in the cold air. "Probably just another drug den," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I wasn't so sure. The front door was ajar, creaking as we pushed it open. The stench hit us immediately, a rancid blend of mildew, urine, and something fouler, like rotting meat. The living room was a mess of trash, crumpled beer cans, cigarette butts, and a stained mattress shoved against the wall. Signs of squatters were everywhere. Tattered clothes, a broken television, a pile of fast food wrappers. "Detroit's finest," Reeves muttered, stepping over a heap of debris. We moved methodically, clearing each room. The kitchen was empty, save for a rusted sink, and the upstairs bedrooms held nothing but dust and broken furniture. Then we found the basement door. It was padlocked from the outside. Reeves and I exchanged a glance. Why lock a door from the outside unless you're keeping something or someone in? My pulse quickened as I pulled out my flashlight. "Help me with this," I said, my voice tighter than I'd intended. We pried the lock open with a crowbar, the metal snapping with a sharp crack. The door groaned as we pushed it open, releasing a wave of putrid air that made my eyes water. The narrow staircase descended into darkness, the concrete walls lined with warped wooden shelves. Rusted cans and moldy jars cluttered the shelves, their labels long faded. The air grew colder with each step, the silence oppressive. At the bottom, we found a trapdoor embedded in the floor, its handle scarred with deep, frantic scratches. My stomach twisted as I knelt to examine them. The marks weren't from a tool. They were from fingernails, clawing desperately at the metal. Reeves swore under his breath, his flashlight trembling slightly as it swept over the hatch. "What the hell is this place?" he asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. With a deep breath, I gripped the handle and pulled the trapdoor open, revealing a rusted ladder leading into a deeper darkness. The air below was thick, stale, almost suffocating, like the breath of something long dead. My boots hit the dirt floor and my flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing a small, windowless room, no more than 10 by 10 feet. A filthy mattress lay in one corner, next to a rusted bucket that reeked of human waste. The cement walls were covered in scratches, some shallow, others deep and jagged. Words were carved into the concrete. "Help me. I'm still here. Please." In the farthest corner, I saw it, a crumpled jacket, filthy but unmistakable. It was Dominic's, the same one his mother described, navy blue with a tear on the sleeve. Reeves cursed again, his voice shaking. What kind of sick bastard does this? My mind raced, but no answers came. There were no chains, no locks in the room itself, but the scratches told a story of desperation, of someone trapped for days, maybe weeks. I grabbed my radio, my voice steady despite the dread pooling in my gut. "Dispatch, we need forensics at our location. Possible crime scene." We scoured the room, finding scraps of food wrappers and half-empty water bottles. Signs someone had been feeding Dominic, keeping him alive. But why? Then we heard it. Footsteps above us, heavy and deliberate. We froze, our breaths shallow. Reeves motioned toward the ladder, his gun raised. My heart hammered as I followed, the floorboards creaking under the weight of whoever or whatever was upstairs. We moved fast, guns drawn, but by the time we reached the main floor, the front door was wide open, the wind howling through the house. Outside, the street was empty, the graffiti-covered walls staring back at us like silent witnesses. Whoever had been there was gone. Forensics confirmed Dominic had been in that room. His DNA was everywhere, on the mattress, the walls, the bucket. But there were no fingerprints, no traces of his captor. We never found him. A week later, Ellen came to the station, her eyes red and hollow. "Did he suffer?" she asked, her voice breaking. I thought of the scratches, the words carved into the walls, the jacket abandoned in that suffocating room. I couldn't meet her gaze. "We're still looking," I said, but the lie tasted bitter. Dominic had suffered, and whoever took him was still out there, slipping through the shadows of a city that hides its secrets too well. I've been a search and rescue officer for 15 years, combing the wilds of North Carolina for lost hikers, stranded campers, and kids who stray too far from safety. Most cases end in tragedy or relief, but a few linger, defying explanation. One case in particular changed how I see the world. A 6-year-old boy named Ethan Myers, who vanished without a trace and returned in a way that still sends shivers down my spine. It was an early April Sunday when the call came in. Michael and Lisa Myers, along with their son Ethan, had set up camp a quarter-mile off the Appalachian Trail. It was their first family camping trip, a chance to bond in the wilderness. They'd chosen a gentle spot near a babbling creek, surrounded by towering pines. According to Lisa, Ethan was playing just 20 feet away, stacking sticks and tossing pebbles into the water while she prepped dinner over a small campfire. Michael was setting up the tent, glancing at Ethan every few minutes. We looked away for maybe 10 seconds, Lisa later told me, her voice trembling. When we looked back, he was gone. They called his name, searched the tent, scoured the creek's banks. Nothing. Panic set in as the sun dipped below the horizon. By the time they dialed 911, nearly an hour had passed. We mobilized quickly, reaching the site by 6:45 p.m. with a team of volunteers, rangers, and K-9 units. At first, I wasn't overly concerned. Kids wander off, chasing a bird or a shiny rock, only to realize they're lost and cry until someone finds them. But as night fell and the temperature dropped into the low 40s, urgency replaced optimism. We combed the area in grids, flashlights slicing through the dark. The forest was dense, the underbrush thick with brambles, but we found no trace of Ethan, no footprints, no snagged clothing, no broken twigs. By midnight, with over 100 searchers blanketing the woods, exhaustion set in, but we pressed on. The canines, trained to pick up even the faintest scent, sniffed Ethan's jacket, his stuffed dinosaur, and a pillow from his tent. Nothing. Not a single hit. That's when the unease crept in. Dogs always find something, a faint trail, a disturbed patch of earth. But this was as if Ethan had been plucked from the ground and spirited away. By the second night, the search had escalated. Helicopters swept the canopy with thermal cameras, their blades thumping like a heartbeat in the dark. ATVs roared through the hills, and we interviewed every hiker and camper within miles. Ethan's parents were unraveling. Lisa could barely speak through her sobs, and Michael hiked ahead of the team, screaming Ethan's name until his voice gave out. At 3 a.m., I took a break at base camp, sitting by a crackling fire with Gary, a ranger who'd worked the trails for 3 decades. His weathered face was lit by the flames as he stared into the embers. "First time you've had a case like this?" he asked. I nodded, too tired to speak. He leaned back, his eyes distant. "Every once in a while we lose someone without a trace. The ones we don't find, why, that's bad enough, but the ones we do find..." He trailed off, his voice heavy. "They come back wrong." I wanted to ask what he meant, but a team lead interrupted with plans for the morning shift. Gary's words hung in the air, unanswered. At 5:42 a.m. on the third day, a call crackled over the radio. Ethan had been found. I raced to the location, my boots crunching through the frost-covered leaves. When I arrived, I stopped short. Ethan sat cross-legged under a towering oak, his hands folded neatly in his lap. He wasn't crying, wasn't shivering, wasn't dirty. He was calm, almost serene, like he'd been waiting for us. His clothes were pristine, his sneakers untouched by the mud and brambles of the forest. A 6-year-old alone for 3 days in the wilderness should have been dehydrated, scratched, terrified. Ethan was none of those things. I knelt beside him, my heart racing. "Ethan, where were you?" He turned his head slowly, his eyes distant, like he was remembering something he couldn't quite grasp. He didn't answer. Lisa ran up sobbing, wrapping him in her arms. He didn't react, just stared past her, his expression blank. Michael tried next, shaking him gently. "Talk to us, buddy. What happened?" Still nothing. I noticed his shoes again, spotless, as if he'd never taken a step in the woods. At the hospital, the doctors were baffled. No dehydration, no injuries, no signs of exposure. Ethan wouldn't speak about where he'd been or what had happened. For weeks, his parents tried everything: therapists, gentle questions, even play therapy. He remained silent. Then one night, Lisa heard him whispering in his sleep. She leaned close, shaking him awake. "Ethan, what did you say?" His eyes opened, but he wouldn't look at her. In a flat, emotionless voice, he said, "It let me go." When she pressed him, he clammed up, refusing to say more. A year later, I checked in with the family. Ethan was doing okay, but Lisa confided something that still chills me. He refused to play outside alone, wouldn't go near the woods, and sometimes in the dead of night she'd find him standing at his bedroom window, staring at the tree line. It was as if he was waiting, whether for something to return or to take him again, she couldn't say. I don't know what happened to Ethan in those woods, but one thing is certain: he wasn't lost. Something took him, and for reasons I'll never understand, it let him go. I can't help but wonder how many others never come back. Night shifts as a cop in Tulsa have a way of sinking into your bones. The city grows quiet as the hours tick by, the streets emptying until it feels like you're the only one awake. Most nights are routine: drunks, noise complaints, the occasional break-in. But some calls burrow into your mind, refusing to let go. This was one of those. It was just after 2:30 a.m. when the 911 call came in. The voice on the line was small, fragile, unmistakably a child's. "There's someone in my house," she whispered. I gripped the radio tighter, waving over my partner, Officer Darren Cates. "What's your name, sweetheart?" the dispatcher asked. A pause, then, "Addison." She sounded no older than 6, her voice trembling but eerily calm, like she'd done this before. "Are you alone?" the dispatcher pressed. "Yes," Addison replied. My stomach churned. A kid alone at this hour. Hiding from an intruder was bad enough, but something in her tone set my nerves on edge. "Where are you right now, Addison?" the dispatcher continued. "In my room, in the closet," she whispered, her breathing shaky. "Good, stay there. Officers are coming. Is the person still in the house?" Another long pause. "Yes," she said, so softly I barely heard it. "Can you tell me what he looks like?" The silence stretched, requisitioned, was deafening. Then, in a voice that made my blood run cold, she said, "I don't know." Kate's and I exchanged a look. "You don't know?" the dispatcher asked. "Have you seen him?" "No," Addison replied. "But he comes every night." My heart stopped. "Every night?" I radioed dispatch, my voice tight. "We're on our way." The line went dead before she could say more. We sped to the address, an old house in a quiet Tulsa neighborhood. The house looked ordinary. 2 stories, dark windows, a single rocking chair on the porch swaying in the breeze. No signs of a break-in, no lights, just an unsettling stillness. The front door was unlocked, which set my nerves on edge. Inside, the air was stale, like the house had been sealed shut for years. The living room was tidy but lifeless. No dishes, no clutter, no signs of anyone living there. On the kitchen counter sat a cell phone, its screen glowing with a timer, counting up 27 minutes. The call hadn't been disconnected. Kate's radioed dispatch confirming our location. We moved through the house, checking each room. The living room was empty, the bathroom spotless, the guest room bare. Then we reached a child's bedroom. Pink walls, stuffed animals lined up on a shelf, a neatly made bed. It looked like a child's room, but it felt staged, too perfect, like a set piece. The closet door was slightly ajar. I pulled it open, expecting to find Addison, but the space was empty, just a shelf and a few hangers. The air felt heavy, like someone had just been there. Dispatch confirmed the house had been vacant for 6 years, owned by a couple with no children. No record of an Addison Brooks existed. My mind reeled. We'd spoken to a little girl, seen her room, yet she wasn't real. The rocking chair on the porch had stopped moving. Backup arrived, but the house was empty. No squatters, no signs of life. I stood outside, staring at the second-floor window. The curtain twitched, but when we checked, no one was there. The investigation turned up nothing. I replay Addison's voice in my head. "He comes every night." Was she real? Was the house playing tricks on us? I've never returned, but I can't shake the image of that closet door, ajar, waiting. As a St. Louis patrol officer, I've seen the worst of humanity. Drug-fueled rages, violent disputes, gang shootouts. But one night, a call came in that changed how I see people, because some don't seem human at all. It was a Thursday night just after 10:30 p.m. when a woman called 911, her voice low and trembling. "My husband, he's not right," she said. "He's been standing in the hallway for hours. He won't talk. He won't move." Dispatch pressed for details, but she whispered, "I don't know if he has a weapon." I radioed dispatch, expecting a mental health crisis or a domestic issue. I wasn't prepared for what I found. The house was a neat suburban 2-story, the porch light casting long shadows. The neighborhood was silent. No dogs barking, no TVs flickering. The front door was cracked open, not forced, just waiting. Inside, the woman stood in the entryway, her nightgown thin, her hands clutching her sleeves. Her eyes were fixed on the hallway where her husband stood, tall and rigid, staring at the wall. His breathing was slow, deliberate, unnatural. "Sir, can you hear me?" I called. No response. I stepped closer, my hand on my holster. "Your wife is worried about you." His lips moved, barely audible. I let it in. He mumbled over and over. Then he lunged, his movements jerky, like a marionette. His fingers dug into my vest with impossible strength. I fired my taser. Direct. Hit to the chest. He didn't flinch. "Sir, back off," I shouted, reaching for my gun. His head tilted, his eyes glossy and black. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice flat. I fired a shot into his shoulder. He stumbled but didn't fall, his lips curling into a smile. Not pained, not angry, just wrong. Then he collapsed like a switch had been flipped. When backup arrived, he was awake, sitting upright, staring at me with that same smile. The paramedics took him for a psych evaluation, but he whispered something as they loaded him into the ambulance. I didn't hear it, didn't want to. Doctors called it a dissociative episode, but I don't believe it. Something else was in that house that night, something he let in. And I can't stop wondering where it is now. If these stories left you uneasy, hit that like button and share them with someone who loves a good scare. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more chilling tales. Have you experienced something unexplainable? Drop your story in the comments or email us. We want every detail. Stay safe, because sometimes even those sworn to protect can't explain what they've seen.